From July 1, check your electricity bill. If you do a postpaid, you are likely to pay a little bit more. If you should walk to that store to buy units, you pay more. For businesses that also consume a lot of water for production, you'll be paying a little bit more. Why? Because the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission has approved the latest quarterly review of tariffs when it comes to water and electricity. But what went into this review, and is it indeed justified or not? Also, when you hear the PURC, is it exclusively about protection of consumers, or there is more that this commission does that what we've all been made to understand? On PM Express Business Edition, we're looking at the recent proposed adjustment in electricity tariffs and the concerns that are coming from businesses as you get some deeper understanding also of the workings of the commission. And on PM Express Business Edition tonight, I'm engaging the Executive Secretary, Dr. Shafic Suleman. I hope I got the name right. Anytime I'm in studio and I'm trying to pronounce it, I struggle a lot. I mean, how has it been for you so far? I mean, it's been almost a while since you took over.
Yeah.
Ask the Executive Secretary, how have things been to you so far? Settling in and all those things?
Thank you, and good evening to your cherished viewers as well. I appreciate this time you are having with me. And it's been a tough time from the beginning of last year, 2025, till date. And I think my position was one of the earliest. Yeah. I think I got appointed in January, apparently because of the outstanding issues in the power sector and the priority we are all having in the energy sector. So His Excellency John Dramani Mahama saw the need, and then the other issues were also with structural reforms coming from the IMF program and the World Bank reforms. They saw the need and they appointed me as the Executive Secretary for PURC. And I think so far we've done a couple of structural issues that I think are commendable and are transformational, and also adding to the reset agenda of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama.
I'll be coming to those fine details of those reforms, the status of those reforms as well. Yeah. But also, Doc, help me appreciate something. I mean, if we talk about the PURC, and for the purposes of our viewers, to get some deeper understanding about what are you supposed to do, because often we hear PURC and we think that, oh, you have to protect the consumers, and therefore when we are not seen being forthright with that action, people feel that you are falling back on your mandate. Help us appreciate the 101 in terms of your prime focus when it comes to the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, because often we only hear about you when there's supposed to be a tariff adjustment. And I'll come back to this, even whether adjustment and review, whether I should always be going up. But I mean, just help me appreciate basically in terms of your workings and what you're supposed to be doing.
So the commission, the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, we are governed by an Act 538, Act 538, and I think we have an LI 2413. Which are basically looking at putting the regulatory framework of the commission. If you read if you go back to the memorandum in Parliament that established the commission, it is quite clear and categorical that the commission is there to protect the interests of the Ghanaian consumer. But if you go deeper into the act, you realize that there are two-phase issues to the mandate of the commission: protect the consumer and as well protect the interests of the utility service providers and investors. So it's cutting across both the consumer, which in every industry, the consumer is always the king. So the priority is on the consumer, and then the utility service providers, and then investors that are interested in making their monies or funds available to the sector for us to use to build the infrastructure that the sector needs to sustain the interests of the consumer.
I go through your key mandate, and there's one that talks about protecting the interests of the consumer, as well as the providers. How do we draw the line here Because I'm saying that if I'm a referee in a football game, I'm supposed to handle the two sides. I can do that job. But sometimes in trying to meet the mandate of the other player, you end up also crossing the line, the service provider. How do you play this role fairly? And especially when it comes to, I mean, that's what we know, tariff adjustments, when providers are asking for about 300% jump, cost recovery and all those things. And you also have to protect the interest of the consumer. Having in the back of your mind that I as a provider need this money to help deliver quality service.
So I think because the sector is quite different. That's why we call it utilities. It's quite different if you want to analyze it from economics and all the fundamental market structures. You realize the sector is different. Electricity is a utility, water is a utility that are used daily at homes. So if you tend to want to allow demand and supply or market environment or what we call fundamental market environment to determine how things should happen, it's quite difficult because monopoly structures, the utility service providers are more or less monopoly structures. They have monopoly structures that the consumer hardly get options in terms of selection and making decisions as to which service provider to provide to rely on, and also because of the nature of the sector, like transmission. We have the transmission network that is a natural monopoly. You hardly can get multiple transmission companies to operate. So you also look at the distribution network, look at the number of poles we have around. Just imagine we have multiple companies providing the same service. You realize that it will not be so efficient, and we call something economic transaction, but the transaction cost will not be reasonable. So we tend to have a structure that has a monopolies, natural monopolies. That requires some level of regulation and oversight to ensure that they don't make profits that are too much, and they don't also overburden the consumer. You know, if it is just market forces, you know, the companies are just interested in profit maximization. But since the sector is a utility provision sector and the market structures are a little bit different, you are trying as much as possible to provide an oversight to ensure that profits are not overmade, and also the quality of service is also monitored.
Who determines superb normal profit or not making too much profit? Because these are providers, and now that we even have the independent power producers, they've gone out there, bank loans, they've gone for competitive bidding to get inputs and equipment and all those things. Who determines that an IPP, George Wiafe, should not have profit more than 300% within a financial year?
So those are the fundamental issues. So the system allows us to open up the generation to become competitive because of time, and then because of the issues that we had with Akufo-Addo and the historical perspective of quality of service or reliability of the service. We tend to now allow the generation component to be competitive. So we introduce the IPPs, as you are aware, to come and supplement what the state is doing. That's with Akufo-Addo, that's VRA. So that side, we've invited competition in there. And then now we are looking at the transmission, which is a natural monopoly by most standards. Then distribution is also a natural monopoly by most standards, except from the component of the billing and revenue collection part. But then you realize that the IPPs, you need to sign contracts with them. I mean, usually, in most instances, you sign the contracts, but they shouldn't be long-term. But because over time, the government is not having the resources to build the thermal plants and then the capacity to manage them. And the fact that the IPPs need to go to the international market, most of them, Send Power, for instance, needs to go and raise huge capital from the international market to come and build their power plants. And there are multiple of them that needs to go and raise funding. And you are looking at billions. Typically, you are looking at a typical power plant, 400 megawatts those days. I mean, about $1 billion. So you need to put together well-packaged structures. And one of it is getting a good contract. So we tend to sign long-term contract with them with guarantees that interesting terms like take or pay guarantees, more or less. That's actually the typical role of the government. You more or less serve as what we call an off-taker. You are the main off-taker to the power that is being generated. More or less the main market, the buyer of the product. So that you take off what we call forex risks, that's market risks. You take off most of the risks, market risks, that includes the credit risks. You also take off the exchange risks, and then you transfer the liability of technological risks. You also transfer, aside the market risks, you transfer majority of the other risks to the IPP so that they can manage, right? So when that happens, and you sign a long-term contract, it makes it easy for the IPPs to go and raise the funding and come in. But we've signed these contracts for 20 years, some for 25 years, and we've agreed on the price or the tariff. Most of the IPPs that we have these long-term contracts that we have to allow them to generate the power into the system. And the intention is also that the government picks the power up, and then sell to the Ghanaian consumer, and then we pay them back. I mean, for a very long time, the payment has been a big problem. We have over 10 IPPs out there, and I mean, their payment is a big problem. Imagine that you've gone to take a loan to come and build a power plant in Ghana, and then it's difficult to even get any receipt to even service the loans and all that. There's pressure on them.
I'll come to the payment to IPPs because I want to tie in this cash flow mechanism issue and all those things. But let me come to one, reading through your mandate. One thing that is quite debatable is about investigating complaints and addressing them efficiently. There are some who are saying that, is it maybe because you're not talking about, but we are not seeing the commission be more proactive in investigating complaints from supply issues, power issues. I mean, in recent times, there have been a lot of issues about companies embarking on, these providers embarking on some works. There have been power fluctuations and all those things. Are you living up to your mandate of investigating these supply constraints and consumer concerns about power received and taking action on these providers?
Yes, we are living up to that mandate. I mean, I think from 2025 up to date. In fact, within the Act, there's actually a section, I think section 36, which talks about the Commission having an investigator that goes into any resurrected. In fact, and make it livable. So I'm talking to the Energy Services Performance Unit to look at how best we can bring it up. But notwithstanding that, the Commission has been investigating. In fact, we've been receiving complaints.
Over the past 3 months, it's been terrible for consumers. There have been issues about power fluctuations all over,
we've been receiving
unannounced power outs and all the rest.
Complaints.
We've not seen the Commission come out as they used to do in issuing statements, announcements, investigations, and even sanction some of these power providers.
No, so we've been receiving multiple complaints. So there's a procedure. Anytime you have problems with quality of supply, the first thing you need to do is to complain to the utility service provider. When the utility service provider is unable to help resolve your problem, then you formally complain to the Commission. And I can assure you, we've received multiple. In fact, we have channels. We have distributed. We work with communities. We work with assembly members. We've even set up committees in various districts and even lower areas that are far away from the grid. We set up committees, unit committees, to coordinate with the police, set up WhatsApp platforms. If anybody at any time you have a problem, you complain on that platform and you send a feedback to your regional office, and you also send a feedback if it is not been able to be resolved. You send a feedback to the national office, that's us, the headquarters, and we take it out from there. And we've resolved.
Isn't this process that bureaucratic, some would say?
So most of the problems are localized. I don't know where you stay, but if you live in Medina, where I stay, and you have a problem, first of all, you must be looking at your district. Medina, you are looking at your district, Adenta, or the area district where the service is provided. Maybe it's a localized problem. So when you report it there, then the district manager then takes responsibility to try and resolve it. When it is not resolved at that point, or the problem is beyond that district, then you report to the regional. Then afterwards, so we have the Greater Accra Regional Office of PURC, who takes all those complaints. If that problem is not being resolved, then if it is a bigger problem, like it's a transformer, major transformer overload, issues with quality of service that requires replacement, then they report to the head office, that's to the commission, to me, and then we take it out from there. And we've done a lot of interventions, with the provisions of replacement of transformers, a lot. I can't even count.
Over the past, until recently, that things, and maybe it might not be scientific, stabilized a little bit. Over the past 3-4 months, I mean, there were several complaints across various communities because of where we sit about the power not being regular. You've had ECG going off without prior announcements and all those things. And per your rules, there are supposed to be sanctions on this. We've not seen the commission. Is it that the approach now is now about naming and shaming and letting consumers know that expert did this, we have investigated, we have been sanctioned, it has been resolved? Some are saying that we are not hearing the commission again.
No, so that's, we had issues with Akufo-Addo, if you remember. Yeah. We had a massive issue with Akufo-Addo, and it cascaded into, even before then, we had some explosion in demand at some point, and then we had Akufo-Addo coming in, and then and we had some transformer replacement issues also going on because of the MITO. So there were some interruptions in power supply. Then we moved into the Akufo-Addo incident, which was also resolved. But then generally, we are also looking at regulation from a more proactive perspective. And the perspective, or the perspective I am looking at it, is more or less to work with the utility service providers from the onset. I mean, and I can assure you, most of the problems that we encountered beginning of this year till date, have been prior aware of them. You are working with the Ministry of Energy, and you are also working with the Ministry of Works and Housing at all times. You are prior aware of most of them, and you are working with them to resolve, and that's the ultimate aim. If you are working with them to resolve, you know the problem from the onset, you are working with them to resolve, and you know they are actually making effort to resolve it, then there's no point to say you are coming out with a sanction.
Do I get from you that the approach is changing in terms of what we used to about the name and shame, because that also has an effect on that operator and the necessary sanctions as well? Is the approach changing?
So the approach has
for the commission
changed.
Where
the approach of the surely leadership.
They can't, so I don't you think that is a problem? Because then it's bringing some complacency among the providers, because I will get away with murder.
No. So there's a new approach as I'm speaking. So proactivity, to be proactive. Regulation is to be proactive, to be collaborative. These are very basic terms, but that has been my approach. To be proactive, get involved with what is happening with the whole value chain, because you are the key person responsible. You are the one everybody will come to ask. So get involved from the beginning. Identify the problems with the utility service providers and get them to be on their toes to try to solve them. Making effort to try to resolve them. Collaborate with them. I mean, engage them all the time. At every single week, I have engagement with ECG, I have engagement with Ghana Water every single week. If not the regional managers, is the district manager, or even the national management. Every other time, you are engaging them, you are having meetings upon meetings with them. You know the problems, you are solving it with them. When it's time for sanctions, trust me, it will not even, when they are not complying with what we require them to do to solve the problems, no one would...
Some are saying that with some of the things that have happened over the past 4 months, it justifies the sanction, it justifies unannounced power cuts, and there shouldn't be an excuse because it's a problem with the transformer. You shouldn't announce your planned cuts and maintenance. That there are still communities right now that are having problems with the power being fluctuating here and there, and they are struggling with that.
So, for instance, we have Dodua stretch, Dodua, Amer here, all that stretch. I mean, we're trying our best to solve problems along that stretch. Issues are clear. I mean, for a very long time, even before 2025. I mean, they've had constant or continuous power fluctuations. We've identified the problems, and ECG has gone in to try and replace some transformers, major transformers. Because of the explosion in development, you realize that that area is receiving massive urban development. So there's too much burden or overload of existing transformers. You've got into ECG, they have replaced them. And you'll be shocked about some of the issues that happen. We call something stress demand. You replace a transformer, you are replacing, let's say, a 50 kV with 100. You replace it today, tomorrow, the load exceeds the replaced transformer.
But that is interesting, knowing how engineers are supposed to be working.
And these are proactive activities or collaborations we've done to try and solve existing problems. But after just solving one problem, you are seeing another one. So you again be thinking about what next to do. So generally, I think because of the way we are working and because of the approach of regulation and the way things are churning out, I think we are having a very good working environment with the utility service providers.
And you think that it's getting the results? And consumers don't feel that they are being shortchanged, they are not getting the protection that they need to be getting from you as part of your core mandate?
So consumers are getting 100%, in fact, 100% protection from the Commission. And that's the assurance. Complete protection from any unfair, unjust, or any activities that are coming from the utility service providers that will not inure to the benefit of the consumer. 100% protection. And that's why we are here.
But when I come back, I'll be getting some deeper understanding of the recent review in tariffs, this whole quarterly review of tariffs. This is PM Express Business Edition, engaging the Executive Secretary of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission as you look at the recent hikes or proposed hikes in tariffs and some concerns coming from businesses and industries. This is PM Express Business Edition. We'll be right back after this break.
Another week is here on the greatest of all time show. My name is Giovanni Clip, and tonight we're bringing you talent. Contestant number one, let's bring Danica. Let's bring. He did it for you.
Oh, there is a leakage.
Where's the plumber? For quality and durability, insist on Syntex pipes.
If you want quality, this be where you belong.
Strong, tough, and reliable. Your perfect match to your trusted Syntex pipe. Syntex pipe, it dey carry water, no wahala. Syntex pipe, it dey make water dey flow. Syntex, you're strong and you're tough.
Tee up someone in red, and it goes to
That's who goes for.
What 5 Champions League? You want to know?
I be the real goat. I'm the real goat.
Who is the GOAT? Ghana Jollof or Nigerian Jollof?
Ghana Jollof has no co-equal. The smell alone. Oh my God.
No, that shift. You two they lie, eh? Now the same stew when they use cook the rice and then they go put them for top.
Hey! You are lying. Ghana Jollof.
I knew this year. Forget everybody. Yeah.
My guy.
Put some respect on the goat.
On the goat. The only goat I know lives in Tama.
Every year we dey give to you back.
We are talking about PET. I want some Yaji face.
Except be the goat, huh?
My guy, him be the goat.
Though our choice of goats may differ in football, music, and jollof, Alomo Bitters always brings us together. Alomo, experience greatness in every moment.
Drink responsibly. Not for sale to persons under 18, nor recommended to pregnant women. This advert is FDA approved.
Did you know that Ghana spends more than 8 billion Ghana cedis annually importing food that can be produced right here at home? That's why the Joy brands, in partnership with the Federation of Associations of Ghanaian Exporters (FAGE), are bringing you Joy Agribusiness Month 2026 under the theme From Soil to Sovereignty, Building Ghana's Agricultural Self-Reliance Through Innovation. Join us on the Joy Super Morning Show, Joy News, Joy Prime, and across Joy Business platforms for a month-long national conversation on Ghana's food security and agribusiness future. Since the beginning of June, we have engaged policymakers, industry leaders, researchers, agripreneurs, and development partners, exploring government policy, trade, and financing for food sovereignty, highlighting research, innovation, and mechanization. We have also examined infrastructure, value addition, youth participation, and agricultural financing as critical drivers of sector growth. In week 4, our focus turns to vast opportunities across Ghana's horticultural value chains. The final week looks at consumer power and Ghana's roadmap to food sovereignty by 2030. Stay tuned to Joy FM, Joy News, and Joy Prime. The Joy Agribusiness Month 2026 is proudly sponsored by Agro Monte Company Limited. We understand Agric and Ghana Commodity Exchange, trade, storage, financing, all in one place. That's GCX, powering Africa's commodity markets.
Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition as we look at the recent or proposed hikes in tea tariffs. From July 1, you'll be paying more for electricity and a little bit more for water. But it's also about volumes and units. So the more you're consuming, you're paying more. Some businesses are worried about the impact on the operations going forward. Dr. Shafic Suleman is the Executive Secretary of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. I'm getting more deeper understanding from him. Doc, there is a quarterly review of utility tariffs as part of the reforms. Now, we're getting more details on the reforms that we are undertaking in the sector. Every quarter, tariffs are supposed to go up. It got to some time, there were some delays and all the rest. Do I get from you that going forward, you're going to implement this to the letter in terms of every quarter there is supposed to be a review?
Yes, thank you. As you've indicated, the Commission is supposed to do we have 2 streams of tariffs, or even 3. So we have, the first one is to set tariff for the IPPs that come in. So they signed contracts with the utility service providers, maybe ECG, and then they send the contract to us. We review the proposed tariff and then make recommendation to the utility service providers to continue to go ahead to lock in the tariff for a unit of power that will be generated from the IPP. The second is to do the multi-year tariff review. That's what we did for 2025. So every 3 years, we review the regulated asset base of the utilities and recalibrate it to reflect a foundation. Then we use the quarterly tariff to adjust it to be able to take care of the variations. Then we do the quarterly. The quarterly, as I said, is just to ensure that you take some of the key variables that are likely to affect the regulated asset base and review them every quarter to actually reflect the regulated asset base. It's in Ghana that we have agreed to do it every 3 months. In other countries, they do it every 6 months. So every 6 months, before you want to do any review of the variables, maybe they've either spiked, they've gone too high, or they've gone too down. So you have to be thinking about how best to handle what we call the under or over recoveries. And it's a burden. If sometimes it goes too high, and you can't do anything immediately, you have to wait until 6 months. Then you incorporate all the variations, and it can take the tariff too high, and it may erode the benefits that the quarterly review is supposed to do for the businesses, the IPPs, the system, the liquidity in the system, so that it can keep pace with investment. So the quarterly tariff review is basically to ensure that the key variables that are affecting a more predictable, a more sustainable, consistent cash flow are not eroded. So basically, that's the intention of the quarterly tariff review.
You talked about that multi-year review of tariffs, and when I saw that being implemented, the question I told myself, okay, then we can be excused from those quarterly adjustments. You did that recently, and you've done the quarterly review as well. Is it right for a layman on the street to say that isn't that another form of double taxation?
Not at all. So as I said, after every 3 years, the utility service providers is expected to have invested in new infrastructure.
Expected?
Yes.
But they've not done anything.
No, so that's why you allow them to bring all their investment, all their assets within every 3 years. So you assess it. Your asset base is about, like for instance, ECG, 50 billion Ghana cedis. Maybe 3 years ago it was 40 billion. So the 40 billion in 3 years, the asset has appreciated, the asset has gained in value, there have been some new additions, improvement. So you bring it to the commission, we relook at the asset. If it is worth 50 billion, we use 50 billion as the foundation to then begin to add the quarterly adjustment to keep it at the 50 billion until the next 3 years. So it's the regulated asset base, and we do that for all the state entities. That's ECG, we do it for Gridco, we do it for the regulated entities, ECG, Gridco, then Ghana Gas, we do it for them, and then we look at how to carry them along so that they don't offer a service far below their investments.
And so, but help me out to appreciate what goes into these quarterly tariff review. That is it a inflation, what they call the FX,
exchange rates,
and cost of power generation,
the hydrothermal mix. Then we have the weighted average cost of gas. It's supposed to be weighted average cost of gas. It's more or less like the fuel inputs. So the fuel that we use to generate the power, we are using natural gas, because natural gas relative to LCO, that's liquid crude oil, and then or light crude oil, and then we are also looking at HFO, heavy fuel oils. Using them in place of natural gas, it's more expensive. So you are saying that from the beginning, let's use natural gas so that the consumer can benefit from it. But in reality, you know, and you and I know that aside the natural gas, we also rely on the light crude oil, and we also rely on HFO to ensure that we are able to keep the lights on.
In doing these assessments every quarter, and based on the indicators that you've told me, has the approach changed, or things have been reviewed a little bit when it comes to the data that you use in reaching that decision? Are you looking at past data, or now you try to extrapolate looking forward, the expected inflation, the expected FX, and even the expected weighted average cost of power generation? Because for this third quarter review, some will argue that if you look at the indices and the indicators, the exchange rate has been fairly stable over the past month, and we've seen some spikes recently. We've seen inflation down 3.4%. I'm not on top of the weighted average. Then, if you look at all these indicators, we shouldn't have seen these hikes that you have actually approved.
So aside the multi-year tariff review process, we also take the opportunity to relook at we call them rate setting guidelines. So from 2025, we reassess our rate setting guidelines and updated them to make sure that they are up to date and they are reflective of standardized rate setting guidelines in other jurisdictions. So the guidelines are, we have total cost. Basically, more or less, we are looking at a total cost of an item, then we are looking at the buildup of the total cost. Here, we are looking at cost of generation, cost of transmission, and cost of distribution. And then there are some other levies that comes with it, regulatory levy, some taxes that comes with it. And then you have a markup, a factor that is a little bit difficult, so more or less a variable that you can hardly predict. So you have that also being added. It can be added or subtracted looking at the variations. So we've improved or we've updated the rate setting guidelines, and I'm sure they are also on our website. You can have access to them to see the new.
So now, do I get from you that it's more of the forward-looking or still on?
So let me. So we kind of done the rate setting guidelines update, and then we are using them at all times to ensure that we take care of the macroeconomic variables, and then the weighted average cost of gas, and then the hydrothermal mix. So it's the same, and we try as much as possible to not allow the consumer to get spike in tariff adjustment. I think that's also very important. We don't want a situation where at the end of the quarter you are getting 10% tariff adjustment. That's not easy. You are getting 7% or 8% tariff adjustment. So you are trying to even it out and keep a fairly stable, fairly predictable, and fairly even tariff. That will not have an excessive impact on businesses, and will not also have it's also having political implications. So you are making it you are trying your best to even it out, to make it in such a way that it will be not too much, and it would also be at a point where you don't do it at all, so that it would burden the utilities.
So do you now factor in the forward-looking numbers in reaching the decision and not just the past data?
So for instance, we use the exchange rate. We do a forecast or projected exchange rate within the commission, and we make it available in the decision notes that we announce. In fact, you've realized that we even publish decision notes now. Anytime we do a quarterly tariff review, we actually have a decision note that we put on our website for the consumers or any other interested party to go and look at. So we would be publishing this decision note to give clear explanation of whatever factor we've considered, aside the press release that you've seen. Those are all new additions. But in general, we try to look into the future a little with the exchange rate. We also try to look into the future with the hydrothermal mix, because there are forecasts, there are projections, there are issues that have occurred that are yet to occur. You try to look at them, the forecast, and you take the data to run with. The exchange rate most important. So we try as much as possible to get an exchange rate that is not so different. In any case, the same exchange rate is what is used to pay the IPPs. See, so the exchange rate we use now is the same exchange rate that is supposed to be used to convert the tariffs to pay the IPPs. So if you use an exchange rate of let's say 11.2, that's what the 11.2 or 11.1, and you use it as a basis to pay the IPPs, and they even go to the market and they are getting it at 11.5, they will bring you that shortfall as government. They will keep that shortfall for you as a debt to government. So you are also trying your best to get an exchange rate that is able to reflect the current market dynamics of the tariff, and as well allow room for the IPPs to be able to get full payment of their invoices.
Doc,
and also historic. This is also transformational. This is the first time we are getting the IPPs getting paid full invoices, and there are no debts that comes out of payment issues.
I'll come back to get some details on that one, but there are some more things that if they look at your pricing guidelines or the tariff setting guidelines, there are some who are questioning this recent hikes in tariffs, saying that if you strictly go with your guidelines, there shouldn't have been an increment in tariffs. So what do you tell those?
What about the second quarter? The second quarter, we saw a reduction in tariff. We saw a 4% reduction in tariff across board. I'm sure, obviously, the media and will not pick that up, because we are looking more at the bed.
That one is past. Let's look at this third one. No.
Yeah, but
the argument that if you go strictly with your guidelines, we shouldn't have seen a hike in tariffs.
If we go strictly with our guidelines, we should. It depends. We should
inflation 3.4%.
So inflation,
CD has been fairly stable.
Inflation, CD has not fairly.
Because we saw a spike last month.
Yes,
but it has normalized now.
The exchange rate we used was 11.19 for the last quarter, and the exchange rate we are using now is 11.22. So there's been an upscale.
That is marginal, though.
Yes. But there've been an upscale. Aside that, we are having some structural issues with the generation part. The generation part, we are still not being able to absorb some of the cost, and that is outstanding. Whether you like it or yes, we must keep up with the cost of generation, the cost of making the power available. So, as I said, we are relying so much on natural gas. We have the ENI, that's the Sankofa gas, which we are paying about 70 million. And this is coming from finance, $70 million every month to ENI. We have the West African gas pipeline bringing gas with N gas, Nigerian gas. On average, we are paying West African gas pipeline about $8 million plus N gas almost $12 million a month. In addition to that, that's about 20 million. If you add it to the 70 million, you are hitting almost 90 million. You are looking at making provisions for light crude oil every quarter, which is about $45 million. Then, in addition to that, we are also buying what we call HFO. HFO and DFO. HFO is basically heavy fuel oils. DFO is basically distillate fuel oils. You buy them and make them available to some power plants that we call them they are not directly spinning reserves per our situation, but you can describe them as spinning reserves. They are quick to come in at periods where there's peak demand. So, and you must make these fuels available, especially the HFO. That will come in at periods where power demand is going so high, especially from 6 p.m. Like yesterday, Ghana played a match. So from the time the match was going on, every person in Ghana is watching. You can't afford to put the lights on. And it's an exceptional situation. The demand is very high at that point. First of all, if you put off lights, it's inconvenient.
But some will say that should not be seen as a luxury.
No, I'm just giving...
I get you, but I'm saying that when the provider tries to put that across as a luxury, it's a basic necessity that you're supposed to provide.
Yes, but I'm trying to put in issues into perspective. As at that point, you need to keep the lights on. And it's cost. It's cost. That cost must be catered for, right? So, and that cost has previously been handled by finance. And some of them is getting way on that note. Every year, the fuel bits, the fuel cost to Ghana is about $1.1 billion. So we are trying as much as possible. And the HFO, the period of buying it, you buy HFO. If you want to go through finance, you have to go through what we call commencement authorization. The period of the time you'll be getting it, you might have to off the light and then wait for it to be.
So I get from you that there is a justification for these tariff levels that we are seeing.
Some of the structural issues, some of the structural issues are what we are trying to resolve and also make sure that we keep the system.
There are some who are saying that you might be indirectly rewarding the inefficiencies of some of these power producers, because unless the reports have changed, that we still have a chunk of what they are providing not getting to the consumer. And some are saying that maybe it's a chicken and egg situation. Put pressure on them to deal with those problems, and maybe we might not need tariffs going up at these levels.
Trust me, from the beginning of last year till date, we've stretched ECG. And that's what I'm saying, proactive nature of the commission and then collaboration. We've stretched ECG to the maximum. We've stretched them to the extent that they've taken up their revenue collection from somewhere around 800 million Ghana cedis a month to now 1.8. In fact, some months they do 2 billion.
1.8 billion
Ghana
or 2 billion a month in terms of revenue collection from 800 previously.
From 800. That's a huge stretch. On average, we are trying to agree on some few parameters. On average, ECG's build energy, we are looking at about 2.2 billion. I mean, we are still looking at 2.4 billion. If you take the state entities, government entities, I've heard people talking about the bills from government entities, how much it costs. It's about, let's say, 300 million
a month.
But then ECG build energy, we are still ascertaining the facts. It's about 2.4 billion Ghana cedis. If they are able to collect if they are able to collect 1.82 billion, it means there's still a shortfall of almost 2 billion, even though we are trying to ascertain the bill energy. But the bill energy is basically the bills they send out every month. 2.4 billion, fair enough. If they are collecting 1.8, from which they were collecting 900 million, you will see that there's a drastic improvement. There's a drastic improvement. So we've stretched ECG, notwithstanding that we still have major problems with losses, especially commercial losses. Commercial losses.
And who should pay for that?
Commercial losses. The commission has a 21.5% commercial loss rate benchmark
now
for
the
them.
consumers paying for that when you hike tariffs like this.
So that's why we are saying that the reforms are gradual, or the processes are gradual. We've been able to get ECG to perform up to a very reasonable levels, a very good levels. There's still more that can be done from our perspective and from their perspective. And I know they are also working hard to ensure that they do more than expected. And there are even suggestions. That's why we are thinking about the PSP. There are suggestions that, ECG is too big. Why don't you break it down into various
I'll come by to you as a regulator on the one.
Yes.
Do you also care about the economic impact of some of these adjustments? And it might not be that reflective, but business interest groups that we've engaged have complained that they are saddled with high cost of doing business. And I don't know whether there is still, I knew in the past, and I educated me, there was a different mechanism when it comes to the power charges for some of the industries. I stand to educate it. They are complaining that you haven't thought about this, and therefore you are compounding or worsening their woes. And the little that the option that they have, even though they think about competition, is that they will pass on the cost to consumers. Do you think about the ability to pay out businesses, especially the economic impact of your actions?
So we are looking at it in various forms. The economic impact of the tariff.
Businesses as well.
Yes. So first of all, the businesses want stability, consistency, and they want some level of reliability. And last week I was with some of the companies in Tema, and I think a month ago the British High Commission also organized a breakfast session with all the industries, and I was given the opportunity to address and also listen to them, their concerns. And generally, all what they want is consistent power, reliable power, and predictable tariff adjustments. That's what they indicated they want. They would have preferred to have relatively cheaper power compared to most of the places we import the substitutes from, China and India and other places. They would have preferred to have power as cheap as those places. But unfortunately, the power we have in Ghana, the generation component is still too expensive, and we are trying as much as possible to work on that. But what they want generally is consistency in the tariff adjustment. They want a safe, a reliable regulatory environment. They want a predictable regulatory environment, and they don't want high spikes. All of a sudden, you are seeing 10% today, tomorrow you are seeing 20%. You are not even seeing a reduction at all, and then you wait for 1 year, then you come and do an increment of 50%. That's what they don't want. And then to the other side, we know categorically that consumers have to always make a choice between paying electricity and as well using the same income for health, for education, for even savings. So you are trying as much as possible to not overburden consumer, or to let them have more disposable income. Power shouldn't be the chunk of the cost of consumer expenditure. And we are looking at all those parameters.
And did that thing influence when you were setting the tariffs 100%. For the NESCO? Because
100%.
For electricity in particular, the more than almost 4%, or some are saying that it is quite high. The whole idea about quarterly, as you said, is to do marginals, but you've done 0 point something for water. Why couldn't you have done the same thing for power as well?
Okay, the power that's what I'm saying. The power 3.4, 6%, and then water it has a direct impact on. So anytime you increase electricity, because electricity accounts for 30% of the cost of water, right? So if you do 3.5, for let's say 3.5% for electricity, it directly translates into an adjustment for water, and that's what we are seeing, about 0.8%. So relatively, is to keep pace with the cost of providing the service. That's one, and then two is to make sure that the service is also made available at all times. And I think that's also very important. The cost of unreliability, and that's something we have to look at a point as well.
In enforcement,
and even the cost of substitutes.
I see. That'll be fun. That debate altogether. Yeah. I mean, in terms of the implementation going forward for July 1,
yes,
what mechanisms do you have in place to ensure that the power distributors and providers are indeed sticking to these level of improvement? There have been times in the past where consumers have complained that, see, the tariffs have gone up, we walk into the shops, and the meters or the units run like something, meaning that these people are maybe shortchanging consumers. What mechanisms do you have in place to ensure that from July 1,
yes,
I am charged those amounts that you approve for these providers?
So, for instance, if you say consumers are being shortchanged, you are even, so now ECG does not even control the revenues that they collect. All the revenues that ECG collects, we've established what we call a single holding account that ECG puts the money in. And it's coming directly from the various regions in the various districts that take the revenues. And some of it is even coming directly from the vendors into the single holding account. So ECG cannot even benefit from any meter running fast, because the intention is that if they are collecting the revenue
those complaints do come to any time there are tariff.
Yes, so they've been an issue. I think the last time I was at your station, we look at that issue where meters, we had an abruption. When we did the MITO, we have a surge. And it was also part of ECG's internal mechanisms to ensure that their meters communicate with the tariff. And it was because the commission was requesting for it. We indicated that we pass tariff, very few people actually pay, and the rest don't pay. And most of them, their meters do not communicate with ECG systems. So we made them to enforce that mechanism. And meters that were previously not communicating with ECG meters and the systems, and the previous tariffs that were not being captured were now being reflective. So it was accumulative. So consumers felt it. Even with that, we came in, spoke to, had conversations with ECG, had a meeting with them, and they stabilized the system for consumers to feel relieved.
So this time you're not going to see that?
Not at all.
And there's a mechanism in place that would ensure that if a provider might be doing that, you will flag it immediately?
Immediately. I mean, all our regional offices are ready. All are ready to take up any complaint at all. We just trained them yesterday to make them aware that this is the new thing coming up, and they are ready to take complaints at any time from the 1st of July.
Is there any mechanism? I think that it used to be. Are there any mechanism in place, these lifeline consumers, or based on the reforms that are taking place, all those things have been taken out, and therefore, even if you consume within the band, you're still going to be paying the same amount as somebody who is consuming and has about maybe 50 ACs in his house, and when he even goes to work, they are all chilling in the room, so he can walk in, chill, and all those things.
No, so if you consume more, the residential bracket is a little bit high.
Do we still have the lifeline?
So the lifeline consumers are still there. It's interesting enough, about 80% of NETCO, the Northern Electricity Company, consumers are lifeliners.
Interesting.
Yes. And so we have over 1.3 million lifeline consumers in Ghana. And they are real. Where I come from a rural community. My hometown is called Bukbele. I know brothers who are still having just lights and maybe a TV, and then at home. And that's all they don't have irons, they don't have microwave, they hardly have a fridge, they don't even have a fridge.
AC.
They don't have AC is something that they will never think about, right? My hometown, and I know multiple communities within my hometown or people who still live within that lifeline, and we protect it. Just imagine myself, I've lived within those circumstances, where fan is a luxury. Fan is a luxury. Air conditioning is never in our minds. We are just interested in seeing in the night. That's getting vision, and also watching TV or radio when we want to listen to the news, and that's all. And those consumers, 100% being protected by the Commission.
And so this new adjustment will still...
The lifeliners are still there, yes. About 1.3 million of them are there.
With respect to this concern by businesses as well, is there any pre or post engagement with them to appreciate that? Where do we draw the line between regular provision of power and then having problems with irregular supply? Maybe this tariff could address that.
So I wanted to talk about my visit to some industries last week at the Tema. Yeah, but when I went in there, we went to talk about power issues, and we decided to go to where they receive the power from ECG, and where they also have their alternative power supply sources, and you'll be amazed. Even the physical outlook of taking power from the grid is safe, is convenient, is much more easy to take power from the grid than the other side. They have to build massive storage tanks to take liquid fuel. They have huge generators, about 3. One is poor, one is not too reliable, and they are thinking about looking at getting a new one or a better one. You can imagine the burden that they are going through to actually rely on their own internal power generation. In fact, they have to then rely on buying diesel at all times. So the inconvenience that is there to these businesses in generating their own power, and some of them, like the smelting companies, like I can mention names, B5 and Faro, they probably cannot even make any decision to try to do it on their own because of the huge cost. They need stable power to do that. So what I'm trying to say is that the grid is still the most reliable and the cheapest at all times. I mean, and the way the tariffs are done, the grid will be the cheapest at all times because we have the hydro. We have the hydro dump, which is cushioning consumers, very cheap and reliable. We have PURC offering that that base weighted average cost base. Then we are adding the thermal, and if you look at what we call economies of scale, because it's a monopoly sector, economies of scale, the larger you produce, the lower the unit cost. So obviously it's also having an impact. So the grid is always the cheapest to these industries, and we are looking at that parameter as well. We've made provisions. If you look at, we call it MV2, provisions within the tariff to take care of the interests of the steel manufacturing companies, and we give them an exclusive tariff. The intention is actually good. You look at the economy of a country, and you look at industries that have import substitution ability, industries that have direct benefit to. So import substitution then means that it will reduce your balance of payment, and then you look at industries that have massive employment creation opportunities. Then the government makes an intention to actually give them tariffs that are competitive. Competitive here means that if the same industry is here, manufacturing steel, and you are importing the steel from China at a relatively cheaper tariff in manufacturing the steel, how will it cost? How much will it cost? Will it be competitive? So the government looks at that and then gives them a tariff that makes their production costs competitive as their counterparts in China and India and other places. So we have that special tariff. Even that is not, it's still a little bit high relatively, but we are working towards ensuring that that tariff is also competitive for them.
Do I get from you that these quarterly adjustments, they've come to stay in terms of the strict enforcement? Because there are some who are saying that anytime we hear quarterly review, the tariffs are going up, even though the entire time they've gone down. It looks like the whole idea about those marginal spikes and even going down when it's due. Some consumers say, and I say some, they are not feeling it.
George, the last time we did a tariff reduction, you didn't look for me. So obviously, I'm also more relieved if there's a reduction than when there's an adjustment upward. Do you get what I'm saying? Nobody talks about the reduction. Everybody wants the reduction. The Commission would be happy to get consistent reductions so that Ghanaians will be relieved. But you're looking at the product. If you keep on reducing, will the supply be reliable? and the reliability and the availability of the product is priority than constantly reducing the tariff, right? So you are looking at making sure that the product is constantly available. You can reduce the price and collapse the market.
The indicators are looking quite favorable.
Yes.
Inflation, even though there could be a spike this last month, going forward it could drop. You look at crude prices dropping like nobody. It's 76 today. I don't know about the cost of power, and then even the FX. We've seen some pickup marginally over the past 2 weeks. Some are saying that if I look at these indicators and I can develop my own modeling, tariffs at West should stay flat next quarter. That is the fourth quarter.
Inshallah, if the variables remain the same and do better, the Commission is always pleased to review the tariff downward. Yes.
The variables are looking quite favorable.
Yes.
If inflation,
so if by next quarter exchange rate is 10,
maybe if you work with the Bank of Ghana's modeling that they've projected between 11 and 12, we might not get to, our best bet to be maybe 11 or something at the lowest.
So if it is 11, if it's far lower than the last, the 11.22 that we've used, if it is lower than that, trust me, there's nothing the Commission can do.
Are you not rigged hyper, some would say, as a Commission?
No, so that's what I'm saying. There are other very important structural variables that we look at. Yeah, but as we are moving into the future now, things look very, very, very good. And then the structural issues most of them are also being handled and taken care of. You remember the excess capacity issues we were having? How do you talk about them again? It was a conscious effort by the Commission to actually take care of the excess capacity. What it means is this: anytime the IPPs generate power and bring 100% of their bill to us. In fact, first of all, there's their existing installed capacity. We were consuming less than that. So a plant has power has capacity to generate about, let's say, 300 megawatts. We have signed a contract to take the 300 megawatts, but we end up taking, let's say, 200 megawatts. The IPP still brings an invoice of 300 megawatts, the cost of 300 megawatts, right? And you are supposed to pay, right? So we've been able to, and the tariff didn't capture that. So we've been able to build in the excess capacity to ensure that at all times the IPPs are able to, when they bring 100% invoice 300 megawatts, we are able to pay. And then fortunately for us too, demand has picked up to that level. So now we are not even talking about excess capacity. That was the regulators.
I'll come back more to the reforms.
Decision. I mean, yes,
EVs. And I looked at your release and I asked myself, are you not taking on too much? Why are you now also trying to set rates or tariff levels for people who are using these electronic vehicles, charge and all that? After all, I'm charging in my house. Just allow me to do that.
So whether we like it or yes, EVs have come to stay, and we are seeing a massive intrusion of EVs.
From your level, are you seeing that serious spike?
Yes.
In terms of the reports they send to you?
Massive. The Commission is as well even having EVs, and you have to try driving an EV. It's so sleek, less noise, more green, and I'm sure very soon more Ghanaians, more consumers will come in. But then the Commission realized something. People who buy EVs tend to charge them in their homes. And you see the homes, the load, the transformers that we've installed at various homes are not very high capacity. And we realize that consumers are charging EVs in their homes. And it's putting a lot of overload on the transmission and the transformers. So what the Commission did was to engage various EV charging station companies. And then we've agreed, realizing that they just need a benchmark reflecting tariff, so that they know that the Commission is thinking this way, and then there's a benchmark reference tariff for them to use as the basis. But then that benchmark reference tariff, what's it supposed to communicate? It's supposed to also tell the consumer at home, if you are charging your EV at home, you are going to be paying the residential tariff. And the residential tariff is a little bit higher compared to charging the EV tariff. So it's encouraging the the consumer, to consider the option of taking his EV from his home to go to a commercial place to charge it, so that the commercial entities can as well make some business for themselves.
And you have a different tariff level for them as well. So whilst you're doing that, I mean, you started this last quarter. What are the providers telling you that are we seeing some pickup in demand at their level, or it's still a long way to go?
So they are getting a lot of the EV service providers. They are happy about it. They are getting a lot of signals that more people are bringing. But it's also based on the availability of the EVs. The more EVs we have, the more you see. And other third parties, other companies are going to build. Boost Energies, I know, are going to build more EV charging points. The commission itself, PURC, we are also considering building new EV charging points. Maybe, I'm sure Joy FM will be, or Joy Multimedia will be building a small EV.
When I come back, Doc, I'll be looking at some of the reforms that you are pushing as well, and how that is impacting on availability, supply, and also reducing costs for consumers. This is PM Express Business Edition as you look at the recent proposed increase in utility tariffs and concerns that are coming from businesses in the country. We'll be right back after this break.
Can he tee up someone in red? And it goes to
That's who goal is for. I got 5 Champions League. You want to know? I be the real goal. Who is the goat? Ghana Jollof or Nigeria Jollof?
Ghana Jollof has no co-equal. The smell alone. Oh my God.
No, that shift. You two they lie. Now the same stew when they use cook the rice and then they go put them for top.
You are lying. Ghana Jollof.
Are you busy? Forget everybody. Yeah. My guy. Put your papa in the judge. Put some respect on the goat. On the goat. The only goat I know lives in Tama. Every year we dey give to you back. We are talking about PET. I want some Yajiaji face. Except be the goat, huh? My guy, him be the goat.
Though our choice of goats may differ in football, music, and jollof, Alomobitis always brings us together. Alomo, experience greatness in every moment.
Drink responsibly. Not for sale to persons under 18 and recommended to pregnant women. This advert is FDA approved.
Another week is here on the greatest of all time show. My name is Giovanni Clip, and tonight we're bringing you talent. Contestant number 1, let's bring Baby Car. Let's bring. You did it for you.
Cut. Oh, there is a leakage.
Where's the plumber? For quality and durability, insist on Syntex pipes.
If you want quality, this be where you belong.
Strong, tough, and reliable. Your perfect match to your trusted Syntex pipe. Syntex pipe, it dey carry water, no wahala. Syntex pipe, it dey make water dey flow. Syntex, are you strong? Are you tough?
Step into a universe of play. Explore games for every taste and find your favorite way to play. The excitement starts here. 1x Games on 1xBet. A world of games, wherever you are.
Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition. As you look at the tariffs that will be going up from next month, you'll be paying more for electricity and a little bit more for water. Depending on the volume that you consume, your bill could spike, your bill could be normal. Engaging the Executive Secretary for the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, Dr. Shafic Suleman. He is my guest on PM Express Business Edition. Before I delve into the reforms, quarterly review of tariffs. I mean, some are saying that it is part of an IMF program that we are enforcing, and that maybe ourselves wouldn't have done this thing.
No, so that's another interesting thing about IMF You know, the IMF don't bring anything new. They come and look at your existing system and pick some of what you have agreed to do, to actually do, and ask you to do it. So the quarterly tariff review is there. We have agreed to do it.
And it was not being enforced.
It was not being done. And that has led to most of the problems, because power obviously has political implications. And then the previous government, at a point, they reduced tariff during COVID, and then there were some small issues that they didn't consider resolving those times, and it's led to a lot of problems. In fact, one of the major reasons why we went to the IMF is because of the increasing sector debt in the power sector, and it is huge. It was 2.2 billion, or it's $2 billion every year. That was the cost of the energy sector debt. $2 billion every year that the government must make available to sustain. So the 2 billion is not like the government must make that money available to sustain the sector. So as we are speaking, that it has reduced to 1.1 billion.
And that's what I was coming to.
The government must make it available to sustain the sector.
That's the question I was coming to. That the reports that the providers sent to you, which you require, what is the current level of the energy sector debts that has been paid? Is it a bond issue, a guarantee, or indeed payments have been made to these IPPs and the other power producers?
Yes, so the ESLA report from finance, the 1 cedi on the petroleum products that was passed. So that has been used, and I think there's a report to Parliament that have come across from finance and have gone through. So that money has accumulated. If you see, that's accumulated about 8 billion. So they've used that 8 billion to pay off most of the arrears. We've not paid all the arrears from the IPPs. Most of the arrears for the IPPs. We've also used some of it to pay to get back the risk guarantees on the Sankofa Jinyame gas production. And then we've also paid off the accumulated debt that was putting Ghana's credit rating at a very terrible outlook. So we've restored that World Bank risk guarantee with ENI. So it's now making Ghana look so good, and our credit rating has also taken shape. I think we've also used that amount to pay for the cost of the gas, the 70 million to the gas suppliers, to the to Jubilee, not to the TAIN, not to the Sankofa partners. Then we are also paying to the Jubilee partners gas supply, and we are also paying N-Gas, and we are using all that, I think, for the accounts I've seen, to pay and sustain that part. And that's actually what is keeping the lights on.
And this has dropped the debt significantly,
dropped the debt significantly. Now, that's what I'm saying. It's not a debt. So the government had to go and borrow to come and sustain the power sector. So let's say,
borrow when there was the ones that had generated more than.
So let me explain this for you to get. So every year, before our lights can be kept on consistently for 12 months, the Ministry of Finance must cough out money to ensure that we pay for the cost of all these fuels.
For a month or for every month?
So every month, on average, is $92 million. As we speak, it's $92 million. So when you see your lights on for 30 days, what it means is that aside the tariff we are paying, the Ministry of Finance is also putting in $92 million to make the lights.
What has happened to the cost recovery that is part of this whole program?
So that's what I'm
recovering the cost from the tariffs that we are charging.
So I'm just letting you know what the issues are from that perspective.
But still, that's the question. Are we not recovering the cost through the tariffs we are charging?
That is not enough.
Interesting.
The 1.8 ECG collects, about 80% of it goes to pay for the IPP cost, the thermal generation cost. 80% of it. Then the remaining 20% is what we pay to the distribution network and then the transmission network. And then Ghana Gas, some of the activities Ghana Gas plays for us, and then N-Gas, and West African Gas Pipeline. They have a reverse flow that we pay. So most of the money ECG collects is then used to settle the debt or the invoices that the IPPs bring in. That's one. And then the remaining part is used to sustain the transformers. That's ECG works, and then the transmission system, grid codes activities, and then the other service providers, Ghana Gas, West African Gas Pipeline, and the rest. That's what happens. The cost of the fuel itself is not being recovered. That's the shortfall. The extra 1 billion. So the total revenue requirement per month for ECG to collect to pay for everybody, including the cost of gas, is let's say 2.7 billion. ECG collects 1.7 billion. So there's a shortfall of 1 billion. And that's equivalent to the $92 million. And that's what finance is coughing out every single month to make sure that the lights are on. Assuming ECG collects all of that, collects the 2.7 billion, what it means is that finance, instead of using the $92 million to pay, the cash waterfall would have been able to pay all the sector players, including the 4 service providers, so that finance can then use the $92 million to invest in our roads, our hospitals, our Greek sector, our schools, create more jobs. But this 92 million is constantly, every month, used to keep the system going. So it has reduced. So let me add, it has reduced. Formerly, it was more than that. So at the end of every year before 2025, the government was spending 2 billion. But with the current system, we are spending only $1 billion to keep the lights on. And it's because of the sector reforms. ECG has, so formerly government was still paying for the shortfalls within the power generation network. There was a limited amount of money going to the state entities, Gridco, VRA, ECG, right? There was a limited amount of money going there. So now everything has changed. The reforms has introduced more liquidity to the state entities and has been able to also allow the system by itself to pay the IPPs without any government intervention.
I'll come to the cash flow mechanism, get some understanding there, but also to get some understanding from you about the spike in revenue collection from about 800 million Ghana cedis to almost 2 billion a month.
Yes.
Some are saying that if ECG is able to do this because of the pressure being brought on them, then some will see that maybe there is no justification for a private sector participation when it comes to collection of revenue.
No, there is, because I just told you.
They've moved from 800 to almost 2 billion.
So
being
ECG,
done by ECG itself, some will say. So you don't need an external partner to do that. It comes with an additional cost as well.
Current ECG management, fantastic.
Yeah.
Probably, as I said, because of the nature of the regulation, we are moving towards a more proactive, collaborative regulatory environment. So we are working well with the with them. So we've seen some drastic improvement thanks to the management of ECG in their activities. All the same, the tariff has come in handy to ensure that the revenues are being are also seeing a surge. Yes. So basically, they've also improved in their performance. No two ways about that. Yeah. The level of their activities, the level of revenue mobilization, the level of revenue collection, they've done so well within this short time. And they've kept discipline.
And they shows it can do. You don't need an external contractor to do that.
Current ECG management, absolute discipline.
So does it justify an external party coming in to help collect that?
How long? That's that? 1, 2. I mean, just imagine, even with all the effort ECG is putting in and the existing shortfall of still 1 billion Ghana cedis, the $92 million every month. Just imagine. If you were the finance minister, what will you be thinking about?
Is there shortfall in that?
Making 92 million available to keep the lights on. What about your other sectors of the economy? What about education? What about health? What about your roads infrastructure?
What presentation have they done to the regulator to say that the shortfall, the gap, is as a result of inefficient collection and not because of the fact that a chunk of what they have produced is not getting to the consumer, if you try to mark up the numbers?
So you are looking at the commercial losses, but the option is this. So now they've gone to wherever they can get to let's say 2 billion a month.
Roughly 2 billion.
2 billion. And there's a shortfall of 700 million. What options do you have? is to do what you used not to do before. Is to bring in a third party. Try and bring in a third party. If you bring the third party and it's not working as expected, you go back to...
We need to gamble, some will say, because if they are on that path of doing that, why do you want to gamble still going? And then someone will say that maybe this is just an IMF conditionality, because if the ECG themselves are doing it, there is no justification of bringing an external party to do the collection.
George, last 2 years, 2024, the issues were a lot more than what we saw from the reset agenda we are seeing now, right? So there's improvement. Management has been sustained. There's been consistency with what ECG is doing. Fantastic improvement so far. The other option is, but there's still problems. So why don't you consider an option that is available for you? And the option is, you've tried a PDS scene before for 6 months and you saw some improvement. And you've seen that a PSP is working in other jurisdictions, fantastic, bringing results, closing up the gaps in revenue mobilization, and it's working. So what goes in your mind immediately is also to ensure that you bring it in, so that you can use the 92. Don't forget that $92 million. You can use that $92 million. Imagine $92 million made available to the economy every single month, instead of using it to keep the lights on.
Help me with this cash waterfall mechanism. I think for ending April, you've done, is it about 8 billion, trying to be corrected in terms of the collections as well. But this is, help me explain this well to me. And also in the report, I realized that it is not just the IPPs, but even Jubilee partners are contributing. And what's the latest quarter in terms of the payments that are supposed to be done. But first, help my viewers appreciate this cash flow mechanism that was brought upon as part of the reform for the sector.
So if I will have to appreciate His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and the Sector Minister, Honorable John Abdullahi Napo, for making it a reality. I remember there was a time we had engagement with the IPPs before 2025. And one of the major concerns was that there's a mechanism that is in place, but it's not working. And they are making propositions that it should work. And when there was a change of government, immediately Cabinet gave us a memo outlining the strategy, way forward, and how to implement it. And that's one of the items we took at the early part of our administration to implement. And then the issue of consolidating all ECG accounts into one. So the commission, the PURC, took it up to consolidate all the 90 accounts. You've heard of them. I mean, that was happening. Just imagine 2024, ECG operated 90 accounts. But in a month or two, we consolidated all those accounts into a single holding account. And then we've also digitalized it to make it transparent. So ECG collects the revenue, all right, but that revenue doesn't go to their personal accounts now. For you to have said that ECG is switching in customers. No, whatever revenue ECG collects now goes into a single holding account. And that single holding account is the disbursement point at the end of every month. And for information, the commission, PURC, chairs the cash waterfall mechanism from the beginning of last year till date. And we've been doing excellent.
And this is a mechanism where the revenues that, just explain that bit to me for the purposes of my viewers as well.
So this is the mechanism that receives all the revenues, and at the end of every month, every 26th of the month, the revenue sits, the account sits with a state-owned bank. So the state-owned bank declares it. They send an email to the top, to Chief of Staff, to the Minister of Energy, then to the Commission, and to ECG. We all see what has been collected. Then on this 27th day, there's a committee chaired by the Commission, chaired by PURC. We then sit down, use the formula we have, the tariff formula,
to make the distribution,
to do the allocation to each of the state entities based on the tariff formula we have. And that has been done from February last year consistently till date.
We've seen April.
So the whole of last year, ECG collected, the account received 17 billion. And from the beginning of this year till now, the account has received about 10 billion. unprecedented, not done before, not seen before.
You've done necessary distributions.
We've done all the necessary distribution to all the state entities.
Do you think that you have enforced some of these reforms to the letter now, and that the sector is quite healthy to attract the required investment to deliver the right services to consumers?
George, it's incredible.
According to the PURC.
Yes, it's
according
incredible.
to one independent auditing firm that has put together this report saying that because of XYZ, this is the current state of the sector.
That's why I'm coming in, because all this, you interview more business related. It's incredible what we are seeing now in the power sector. And I want to take this opportunity to also talk about it. It's incredible the level of interest we are seeing in investment in power generation in Ghana. And the level of leverage it has given Ghana, and it has also given the sector. Now we are not interested in looking at power tariffs or IPPs coming with tariffs that are very expensive. And I will give examples. Take-or-pay, no. So as we speak now, government is not offering any single guarantee for any IPP coming into the country. If you are coming in, the cash waterfall should be your reference point. You see, the second issue is even the cost. Because state is not giving any sovereign guarantees, we are not being forced to do this take-or-pay. If you are coming in as an IPP, we've even given an option of competitive tendering. And I'll give an example. We tried to do a solar project, storage project. I mean, third parties were quoting over $260 million. We open a competitive tendering process. Do you know how much others are quoting now? I was just talking about it. $38 million for the same capacity. That's the value of competitive tendering, and that's the value of creating a competitive, liquid, business-friendly, de-risking a sector. And in fact, that's the intention of all what we are doing. We want to ensure that going forward, the composite cost of power is reduced drastically to the standards that we all know. Ordinarily and anywhere else, the cost of generation should account for 30 to 50% of the final cost of power. But in Ghana, it's about 80%. And it's because of the cost of generation. And what we've done so far, the reforms that you've seen, aside trying to reduce the debt that the sector is accumulating, we are also working so hard to ensure that the sector is efficient, is liquid, is de-risk. It becomes, and you believe the number of IPPs that are lined up, interested in investing in Ghana. And imagine if some of them, if we bring them in and we take the weighted average, trust me, it's going to keep reducing the weighted average cost of power till we get to a minimal level. And that's the benefit of the structural reform the president has brought in.
Some will say that your final judges will be the end consumer out there. And that's how we draw the curtains on your PM Express Business Edition. And then the debate was to go on in your homes about whether the commission is indeed playing that referee role, ensuring that consumers' rights are protected, and ensure that service providers are also doing the right things by ensuring that 24/7 there is power on this SPM Express Business Edition. Have a great day.
We are the daughters of St. Mary's, women shaped by faith, discipline, resilience, and a sisterhood that taught us how to rise, even when the odds were not always in our favor. For many of us, St. Mary's was more than a school. It was the place where curiosity was born, where purpose began.